everyone. I hope you all are doing great. My name is Anjali and I'm a STE2 at Microsoft working in their Windows team. Prior to Microsoft, I was working for Siemens Healthineers, which is again a good product based company. I have roughly 6 years of experience in the world of software development. Also, I have 2 years of experience in the professional teaching. Today, we are going to be discussing some important questions on cloud. I hope I will be able to get you insights about the interview pattern and how it is actually going to be there. So, let's get started. So let's start with the cloud interview questions for the backend developers. So the first question which we have here is, what is a cloud technology and what are the different versions of the cloud? So before jumping into the different versions and cloud technology, first of all, I really want you to understand what is a cloud. So whenever we talk about a cloud, so this cloud is not a single thing. This one is a combination of various things, and what and all those things are. So the first one which we have here is services. The second one which we have here is network. Then we have hardware. After that we have storage. And lastly we have something which is called as interfaces. So if somebody is going to ask you what is a cloud, you should know cloud is a combination of all of these things. And why do we need these things or this combination? Basically, this combination will be helping us in delivering computing as a service. So whenever we have to perform any computation, so with the help of this, it is going to help us by providing us a service in corresponding to our request. Now when we talk about a cloud, right, here we have three different types of users. So the first type of a user which we have here is your end user. Then next one which we have is business management user. And lastly we have something which is called as cloud service provider. So what is going to be the major role of this end user? So this end user is going to be that one who will be using the services provided by the cloud. Now when we talk about the business management user, so basically when we have to transfer any data or anything, at that particular time we require a service. And what is that service? That whatever our data is there and whatever the cloud services are there, who is going to take the responsibility of all of that? So this business management user is going to be the one who will provide the responsibility of the data and the services provided by the cloud. So all of that is going to be handled by this person. Now the next one which we have is cloud service provider. So who is going to be the cloud service provider? So this particular is going to be taking care of the risk, whenever we have some IT asset for the cloud, we will be having some IT assets, right? This one is going to be taking care of the maintenance of that. So that is what is going to be the responsibility of a cloud service provider. So what cloud actually does? So cloud is basically acting as a common center for its user for fulfilling all their computing needs. So whenever you need any need, these three people are going to be involved there and they are going to be helping us by providing the computation. Okay. Now let's quickly discuss what are the key features of a cloud computing. Key features of cloud computing. So this one, for the cloud computing we have various features. We are going to be just discussing the important ones. So the first one which we have here is agility. So what is the meaning of the agility or how this one is going to be helping us? So this one is going to help us in quick and inexpensive reprovisioning of the resources. So for the cloud, we are going to be using various resources, and if you have used some of the resources, then you need to reprovision them, and that is what is going to be handled here. Okay. The next one which we have here is location independence. Now, why location independence is important? Because if you talk about cloud, so cloud is virtually located. Now every company is having different servers, and if you will see, all of those servers are something which is not like, let us say you talk about some company, let us say Microsoft. So let us say Microsoft is there in Hyderabad. It doesn't mean that we will have all the servers located only in Hyderabad. What we want, that it should be available each and everywhere. So that is why location independence comes into the picture, so that whatever resources you have, those ones can be accessed from everywhere. Now the next one which we have here is, that is called as multi tenancy. Now what is multi tenancy? So just now we spoke about resources. Now, when you talk about those resources, right? So those ones are not available only for one particular user. Whenever you talk about resources, those ones are always shared among large group of users. And that is something which we called as multi-tenancy. Okay. The next one which we have here is reliability. So, when you talk about reliability, what does it mean? You are going to be having certain resources and you are going to be performing certain computation. Now, whenever you are going to be performing certain computations, so you will not expect those ones to be, just independent of each and everything. If you want some, like, let us say, you are having a keyboard, if you are pressing enter, then only you want certain action, like some results in front of you, right? So when you talk about these computations or the resources, so these ones are going to be dependable for accessibility. It means if you are accessing them, then only it will be available. You store some pictures on cloud, but only if you will be clicking on that picture, then only it will load from its server and then it will be available for you, right? So that is something which comes under reliability. Now the next one which we have is called as scalability. Now what is scalability? So you will be having data and that is going to be provisioned. Now one thing is static provisioning, but if you are expecting some dynamic provisioning of that data so that you can have a scalable application, so that is what you can maintain with the help of cloud. Now we were having two questions. First one was talking about what is a cloud technology. We have spoken about it. Now the next one which we have is different versions of the cloud. So, when we talk about cloud, here we have primarily two models. What and all those are? So, those are your public and private. But it is actually expanded to two more levels, and what those are? That is called as hybrid. And lastly, we have multi-cloud. So these are the four models which are available for us. Now let us quickly discuss about each of them one by one. So the first one which we have is public. Now what is a public cloud? So I told you what is a cloud. It will be having a combination, or you can say set of hardware, networking, storage, services and applications and interfaces. So this combination is going to be actually operated by a third party user. Who is that third party user? Some company or some individual is going to be there. Just now I gave you the example of images. So when you expect some operation for that particular thing, you will be needing some highly scalable data. Why that highly scalable data is required? Because if you talk about certain companies, if they are storing some sensitive information on cloud, at that particular time, they need highly scalable data centers. And what those scalable data centers are going to do, they will be hiding the details of the underlying infrastructure from the consumer. As in, I talk about images. So let us say in your gallery, you can see multiple images. Now that is how it is visible to you. When you will be clicking on, let us say, this picture, so this will load in front of you. Now what is one thing which you do not know here, that in the cloud, how this image is actually stored, what is the infrastructure which we were doing there. Okay, so that is something which we hide. So when you talk about public clouds, so these ones offer us many options for computation, storage, and other services. Okay, now let's discuss what is a private cloud. So, when you talk about a private cloud, in this particular one, why you actually create it. So basically this one is created and managed by a third party for the use of one enterprise. Like sometimes if you have seen, within one organization we will provide access to certain URLs, like some company portals. Within some organization we will provide some common data storage, like we will be storing certain data sets there, certain images there, some fonts there, and within that organization people will have access to that path. So we say it is stored over a network, but how that network is controlled, if you are doing it over a cloud, that will become private cloud. Why? Because only one enterprise is controlling it. So when you talk about a private cloud, so this is highly controlled environment. Why? Because you are not providing access for the public consumption, and when you are doing it publicly, so you need something. And what is that? So that particular thing is called as firewall. Why? Because we need to provide certain security. So on the cloud, if you're storing some sensitive information like related to some organization, you will not expect some outsider to come and access it. So these were the actually two primarily deployment models for the cloud. Now, the next one which we have here is hybrid. So, these days, a hybrid is a term which is used at multiple places, and one common place where we use is organization. People will be asking you, are you working from home or working from office or hybrid? So, when we talk about hybrid, what does it mean? Combination of two, right? So, similarly, here when you talk about a hybrid cloud, so what is that? This is going to be a combination of public cloud and private cloud. And why do you need things in a hybrid manner? So you know what happens at some things, like just now we were talking about the organization. So some company portals are something which you will be expecting it private to certain organizations. So if I talk about Microsoft, so here we have company portals. Here we have certain data which is available only for its internal employees. At the same time, if you talk about Microsoft, so we do provide some documentation, some websites and other data as well, which is available for the general public as well. So that is where we will be needing hybrid cloud. Okay. Next, we have multi-cloud. So as the name suggests, what multi-cloud is going to be doing, it will be having variety of public cloud services. And why do we need that? So that multiple users, multiple developers and business units can work together. Now let's look into the next question. Now the next question which we have is cloud delivery models. So just now we learned about a cloud. And why do we need that? So that it can help us in computation, correct? Now, why do you need cloud delivery models? Because these are the models which will be helping us with certain computing environments, because you have some computation request, but not all the requests are going to be of one type. You can have it of multiple types. So with the help of these cloud delivery models, you can actually provide environment for all of those requests. So this one is going to be representing computing environments. Okay, so for this particular one, what and all are the different computing environments which we have? So the first one is IaaS, then we have PaaS, then SaaS and FaaS. Some people pronounce it as a word, but I usually call it in this manner. Okay. So the first one which we have is this. So this one stands for infrastructure as a service. So what do you mean by that? It means if you have some service request, now those ones can be based upon some of the infrastructure. Now, what infrastructure request can be there? It can be related to your operating system, it can be related to your storage, it can be related to your networking and other elements. So if something is there which is dependent on the infrastructure, so all of those requests are going to be handled by this service. Okay. The next one which we have is platform as a service. Now, why do we need this platform as a service? So basically, in this one, you are going to be combining two things. You are going to be combining infrastructure along with some either middleware services or some software development or some deployment tools. Now, after acting as a combination or some abstract, what it will be doing, these ones are going to be helping the organization so that whenever you talk about some of the organization, what and all things it will be doing, it will be major purpose of any organization for the cloud is going to be deploying any application. So when it will be acting in the combination, it is going to be helping a user to create and deploy applications on cloud. So that is how it will be going to be available for the multiple users outside. Next, platform as a service. Now, the next one which we have is SaaS. Now, this one stands for software as a service. Now, why do we need software as a service? Because you will be having a business application, and that business application is something which is created and hosted by a provider in a multi-tenant model. Just now I told you what is a multi-tenant model, in which you are going to be making the resources available for a large group of users, correct? So that is where this one comes into the picture. Now the last one which we have is FaaS, and this one stands for function as a service. Now, why do we need function as a service? So this one is going to be providing us a platform for the customers, and what that platform is actually going to be providing, so that you can have the option of building, managing or running some application functionalities. And when you are running all of those things, you will not have to maintain the infrastructure, and that is how you can also achieve a serverless architecture. One of the common example for this is if you talk about online compilers. So if you talk about offline compilers, you will have to install that application in your device. After installing, also at the time of installation, you will also have to take care that okay, my system is Windows, so I need the installer which is compatible with Windows. Or if you are having a Mac, you will have to see that okay, I need an installer which is compatible with the Mac OS. So there you have a dependency. But if you talk about online compilers, at that place you do not have the need for considering the infrastructure, and that is where function as a service comes into the picture. Now let's look into the next question. So the next question which we have here is describe the cloud computing architecture. So I told you cloud is used for the computation. Now for the computation as well, how are we actually going to be putting all the components of a cloud model? So that is what we are going to be discussing here. So if you can see, we have a figure in a figure on your screen. Now, what is that figure is showing us? It is showing us the various cloud services which are related to support the needs of a business. So why do we need a cloud? Of course, for some organization. That organization is having some business. That business is going to be having certain needs, and with the help of these cloud components, we are going to be fulfilling that need, right? So, it doesn't matter what your requirement is going to be there, but what is important, that whatever is required, you are capable of bringing the right type of service. And how that service is going to be helpful? That service is going to be providing the support for both internal as well as the external user. So when you talk about something like, let us say, you have clicked on some website which is having a button get data. So when you are doing that, you are getting the data which you are seeing it on your screen. At the same time, something has happened on the backend which is actually retrieving that data. So if you will see, that service is not just there for the external user but also for the internal one as well. Okay. Now, when you talk about this, right, since we are talking about the different kinds of customers, so all that customers should be able to make services readily available to support the changing business needs. If today some application is there which is showing you 5 images on one page, if tomorrow they have a need of showing 7, so they should have the support of providing that change in the business need as well. It should not happen that for 7 you have to make a huge change. Your infrastructure should be in that manner. Okay. And whatever the applications and whatever the middleware infrastructure or the services, whatever you need, so all of that are going to be based upon some computing models. And in addition to all of these things, when you talk about a model, right, so that one is also going to be cloud auditor, which you can see here. Now, what is the meaning of a cloud auditor? So if you talk about a general auditor, so what that one is going to be doing, that person's job is to validate if you are doing that work correctly or not. Similarly, when you talk about cloud auditor, right, so this one is going to be ensuring that all the operations happening on the cloud is actually aligning with all the customer group. This one is going to be ensuring that whatever your internal or external groups are there, they are meeting their obligations, they are meeting their requirements. Now, if you will see what else we have here on the screen, next one is cloud provider. So in this particular case, we have two things. First one is talking about services, and then we have some cloud management services. Now, if you talk about these service layers, we have just spoken about that. IaaS, PaaS, SaaS and all, right? So all of that comprises your cloud provider. Now lastly, we have something which is called as cloud broker. So what is going to be the purpose of cloud broker? This one is going to be providing all these services outside. And at the bottom, if you will see, we have something which is called as cloud courier, which is going to be carrying all that connection. Okay, now let's move to the next question. So this one is, what is an API gateway? Before moving ahead, firstly, let's see what is this API. Like, what does it stand for? So it stands for application programming interface. Now, what we actually do as a part of any organization. In order to perform any operation, we expose one API outside, and that API is actually going to be used by the various customers or various developers. Okay, now when you talk about API gateway, so what this one is going to do, so you are going to be having multiple APIs. Now, sometimes what is the need? Sometimes we have a need that if you have multiple APIs, we want all of them to act as a single gateway. And why that is required? So that overall you will have a uniform experience. Because at the end of the day, what do we want? We want a smooth, seamless operation for the end user. So in this particular one, what we will be doing, like I said, you will have multiple APIs. All of them is going to be exposed as a single API. Now, when you talk about this one, right, what is actually going to do? If you are calling this one, so that one is going to call the other APIs. You can say chaining, like we have some end user here. That end user is making request for this API, and this one is going to call individually for all the other APIs. So when you talk about this API gateway, right? So what it will be doing? It is going to be managing the APIs centrally. Also, at the same time, it is going to be helping by providing some level of security. And you know, security is something which everybody expect on the cloud. If you're putting some of your sensitive information, your personal information, that is something which you do not want to get exposed to the other people as well. You just want you to have the access for that. So that is something which we will be looking for here. Now when you talk about what are the common tasks for the API services, so all of those tasks, who are doing that? API gateway is doing. And what and all those tasks are actually something like, if you want to provide some statistics, if you want to provide some rate limiting, user authentication, so all of that, who is going to handle? API gateway. So if you have some API services, who is going to address them? Your API gateway. And what and all those services we have here? Something called as statistics, rate limiting, and lastly, user authentication. Now let's move to the next question. The next question is, what are cloud storage levels? So what is this cloud storage level? So you must be knowing what we do on cloud. We store our data. Now when you talk about that data, that data is also available in different forms. So based upon all of those different forms, we have some cloud storage device mechanism, and those mechanisms provide some different levels. So those levels we are going to be discussing now. So the first one which we have here is blocks. So when you talk about blocks, so what does that? So you will have some individual data, correct? So that individual is going to be called as a block. So what is a block? You can say it is the smallest unit of data, and that smallest unit of data is going to be accessed individually. You do not have a dependency on something else. So when you talk about the storage levels, so this one is going to be the lowest level. Okay. Now the next one which we have here is files. So let's give you the overview about this files. So if you talk about how this word file come into the picture. So before the era of computers, we were storing some data. And how we were storing that data? In certain files only. That is how this files word come into the picture. Also, like, if you talk about some school kid, college kid, so there again we are having these words like files. People, students will be saying, I have to make a file of this subject, that subject. Now, after having all of those things, what you do, you even buy certain folders. What folders will be doing? They are going to be storing another set of content. It can be file, it can be something else as well. So that is how, the computer words like file and folders, that is how they came into the picture. So when you talk about file, so what a file is going to be having? In the blocks, we have a smallest unit of data. When you talk about file, so here you will have collection of data, and those ones are going to be grouped into different files, and those different files are going to be stored into different folders based upon the requirement. And here, if you are going to be accessing a file, so all the data which is there inside that file is going to get accessed. If you are setting some permissions for that file, so you are actually setting the permission for all the data inside that file, be it read, write, anything. Okay. Now the next one which we have here is object. So when you talk about object, right, here, whatever the data is there, that is going to be there. Along with that, whatever the metadata, or you can say associated metadata. So all of that is going to be organized in a web-based resource, so that if you are accessing your data, so not just that data will be there, along with that associated metadata will also be there. If I have to give you some real life example for this, so let's talk about a movie. So when you talk about a movie, what are the metadata for a movie? It can be something like actor, actress, releasing date, duration. So all of those things are the metadata. If you talk about a file, so when you download a file, if you go to a properties, there you see certain details about that particular file. So all of that is actually referred as a metadata. Okay. Now, lastly, we have something which is called as dataset. So when you talk about dataset, right, in this one, how the values are going to be there. So dataset is something which we also use for the other places as well. And basically what we do here. So if you talk about this dataset word, so we will say I have dataset of images, I have dataset of student data. It means collection of information is there, and how that information is going to be stored. So that is going to be stored inside your tables. So it can be a table based. Sometimes it is also there in the form of some records, right? And what else is the format? Some delimited. So what do we mean by delimited? You must have seen some files like CSV files, JSON files and all, where we will have some comma separated values or some other format is going to be there. So all of that comes under delimited. So whatever the different data storage levels which we have discussed here, they are going to be associated with some different, or you can say some certain type of technical interface, and this interface is going to be providing different types of cloud storage device. And how I just we spoke about APIs as well. So based upon these storage devices only, it is going to be exposing all the data to the outside world. That is why it is very important. At the same time, if you are storing some of your information, so if you are storing something in the form of a video, it is going to have some different metadatas, plus it can have a bigger size. So along according to the type of the data, we are going to be managing it. Okay, let's look into the next question. And that is, what do you mean by rate limiting? So, as the name says, limiting. So, it's very clear what it will be doing. It is going to be restricting us. And what it will be restricting? So it is going to be limiting network traffic. Okay. And why do we need that? So if you know, if this let's just talk about your roads, real life. Okay. So there also we limit the traffic, and how we manage that with the help of the traffic lights. And that is very important, so that you are distributing the data, distributing all the vehicles so that it will not get congested. Correct. So same way, when you talk about a network traffic, right? So at that place, you will be having multiple requests. So what this one is going to do, it is going to be, keeping a track of the IP addresses and time between each request. So this rate limiting, this one is going to be running within that application instead of running on the server, because on the server, like, if you are going to be handling it there, then again you are actually, like, letting the application calls there. Correct. So it is not going to help in the performance. But if you are going to be performing this rate limiting within the application, at that particular time you will have a better track of the IP addresses, and whatever the time bit like whatever the time you are going to be needing between each of the request. At the same time, it's not just going to be helping you with limiting network traffic. What else is going to be the help for you by using rate limiting? It is also going to be eliminating suspicious and malicious activity. I'm not sure how many of you have, encountered this, but I have done. So sometimes if I search on Google, so it will give me that, some captcha on the screen that, usually how the Google does that, okay, you select all the vehicles or something like that. And why it actually gives that option to me, because it will say we are getting lots of requests from your system, and in order to actually understand if all of those requests, whatever are there, are actually done by a user, or all of those are some malicious or suspicious activities. Because what happens, some of the, some people, they just run some scripts, and based upon those scripts they just keep on running certain of the processes repeatedly. That is why a lot of places we have to perform rate limiting. Now, I'll give you one common example of the Gmail. So, this is something like, again, I'm telling from my own story only. So, one day, what happened? I was having lots of data in my phone, and I just wanted to make backup of all of those images in my laptop as well. So, what I was doing, I was just going through all the images, and one after the another I was just sending, like, emailing it. So what happened, if usually if somebody has to send a mail, so it's not going to be like every second you are sending a mail, but that particular day I was actually sending lots of images in one go. So what actually happened, it considered that as the malicious activity, and they actually blocked my account temporarily. So what they have done, they found a lot of traffic on my Gmail, and in order to limit that, they temporarily suspended my account. Because lot of times, like, you will be having certain scripts, or you will be having bots, and all of these things are going to be impacting a website. So basically, it's going to be helping you for the security purpose. So what it will be doing, whatever the API is there. So here I took the example of Gmail. So what was the API which I was using? Send. So they were actually protecting this API so that nobody can overuse it. So in such a case, it's always important to prevent certain actions. That is why that temporarily block was something which Gmail actually took. So if somebody is asking you this question in the interview, it's always good to give some real life example. So you guys can give some of your examples. All right. I hope you all found this session on cloud based interview questions insightful and you must have learned a lot. If you have any questions, anything, please comment it down below and I would be happy to assist all of you. Now we will be meeting in the next session. Till then, happy learning. Bye bye, guys.